Hello guys, and welcome to a new Hanshon episode. Surely you're joking, Mr. Feynman, by Richard Dick P. Feynman. Yes, that's his name, Dick. Turns out it's not just Richard Feynman that's his name. Turns out his other name is Dick Feynman. So let's just go ahead and find out about the grand adventures of this, according to the book, curious character. Let's start right now. Oh, you hate this, do you? Well, there's a cat on the cover, so you're gonna have to be here. I'll explain. Yeah. So let's start this episode by talking about stuff of Feynman. Here we are on the cover. Surely you're joking, Mr. Feynman. Isn't actually written by Feynman. It's technically just told and dictated by this some other guy. Turns out the dictation was about Richard Feynman talking to someone else. They recorded the conversations, and then some guy wrote the whole book down. Wrote the whole thing down. And there's lots. This book was published before he died. It was technically first published in 1985 by Richard P. Feynman and Ralph Leighton, which is his friend and the guy who he talked to his life stories about. 3 years later, they published a sequel, but that's a different episode. What happened to Feynman for these years of his life? He got the Nobel Prize in 1965 and 1985. 3 years prior to his death, he dictated the whole thing and told everyone his life stories and the memoirs of himself in Surely You're Joking, Mr. Feynman. Now let me explain the book a little bit. Surely You're Joking, Mr. Feynman is a fun book that talks about the memoirs of Feynman. Also, these aren't the only memoirs of Feynman in the world. There are lots of things that seems to be going on inside the book. Winner of the Nobel Prize in 1965, he did a pretty good job. Also, his dad taught him to not like prizes and awards and honors because they mean nothing. Back then, he was also possibly considered one of the greatest theoretical physicists. He single-handedly, maybe not single-handedly, but at least he was able to clear up why the Challenger shuttle exploded. Also, this book was published prior to that, so that was irrelevant, but that's still his life, and this is his life. And one thing that I have to say and explain is, why is there a cat on the cover?
Can you explain all that, cat? Can you? Hello? Hey, look. Okay.
Well, it turns out there's this chapter in the book called The Map of the Cat, where he goes ahead, learns about cats, and tries to go find a map about it. And then they're like, map of the cat! Ah! And they're like, okay, this guy wants to murder a cat or something like that. Or that's how it is explained in the book or something. And then they say, oh, you want an anatomical inside drawing of a cat? Also in their brain, they're thinking, this guy's mad! He asked for the map of the cat! Yeah, that was kind of not good, according to Feynman. That's not his own words, but that's something he said. One other thing that I should say and mention is that he started the book off with this, timings of his life, as he called it. He was born at a year, turns out, he was born in 1918 in a small town called Far Rockaway, and then he lived there until he was 17. He went on to the outskirts of New York. That is where he lived for until he was 17. And then he went to MIT for 4 years. Then he went to Princeton and then Caltech. And they've actually got pretty good results too. Turns out that during the work during Princeton, he went to Los Alamos and started working on the Italian bomb, which might have been probably one of the super deaf inventions of the whole entire world. Maybe not as super deaf as Ultron, but still a super deaf compared to what we have today. And we should probably not have made this bomb itself, and if we did, we should have destroyed every little scrap of how to make it, and the ones we do have, well, detonated in space, which would probably be bad for the moon and all those other planets, but hey, it's worth it. Now no one has a super secret weapon, and then there'll be a new super secret weapon in the future, hydrogen bombs. Sometimes I think the Cold War sucks, but there's also the reason, the Cold War sometimes sucks. but I'm not sure anymore. Let's see. What else should we talk about here? Oh yeah, the lock picking. Feynman, you might have heard this story before. Feynman literally had a very good thing and a very good knack about picking locks, especially the ones in Los Alamos, which is the super secure place. One time, there's this story inside there that said that one time he went inside to borrow papers. He doesn't even bother asking because he could pick the lock. So like, pick the lock, boom, take it out, smash in, go away, read, write down the whole report that you needed at all, goes back to the person if he bumps into it, and says, here's the report back, and they're like, how'd you get it? I got it from your office. But it was locked! Yeah, I know. I opened it. One time he actually did that to a guy with a general, and then, yeah. Lots of bad things happened. So this is what happened. There was these locks. There were top, middle, bottom, or top and bottom two cabinets, and people started to use these little iron rods too to place it in. Turns out that actually weakened the security because now Feynman didn't even have to pick the lock. He just had to go and reach in the back and slip each paper one out one by one. You didn't even need to pick the locks. So it's terrible security. You say, it's impossible. You can't pick a lock because we put this rod in, which actually made the lock useless, to be honest. I'm gonna have to try some of these methods. Another time he actually did the lock picking on three cabinets. And this happened. 3 cabinets somehow all had the same combination. He decided to try one of the methods that he learned in a book. And in there, it said this. Think of the psychology of a person of what he would do. And he's like, maybe, yeah, that could work. Snip, 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 snip. Oh my goodness sake. And then boom, he did it. He cracked the shelf open. However, there were also 2 more to go in, and the paper he was looking for was not in there. He went in, and by chance, he decided to open the lock with the same combination, and turns out it opened. And so he kind of got a little, So he wrote in the first one, like something like, don't use like something, great gods, and something in there. Hang on, let me find that out. Alright, so I found this hook. Turns out he decided to use the tricks. Yes, I said that. And I found out that he would use one of the great mathematics of all. And then in the one corner in the phone book, there was the 3.14 pi equals 3.14 and 5 9. Yes, sort of. And he decided to try that. Didn't work. And then he tried other mathematical things that related to pi. Didn't work until he switched them around a little bit. And he ended up with 27, 18, 28. And click, it opened. And then, he tried the second cabinet with the same thing. Click, it opened. And this was wonderful. He just opened all the secrets to the atomic bomb. He just opened the safe to all the secrets of the atomic bomb. So now technically he could just stash them away and make an atomic bomb if he had the money, but he doesn't. So yeah. So he went searching through the cabinet, found that the second cabinet had the paper he was looking for. And then he wrote in a red grease note with a red crayon, a yellow paper that was on the floor. It was blank. And on it wrote, I borrowed document number LA4312. Feynman is safecracker. Can you put the note on top of the paper from the filing cabinet and close it? And he did the same thing to the first one. And wrote this other note. This one was no harder to open than the other one. Wise guy. And shut the cabinet. Then the third one, in the other room, he wrote, when the combinations are all the same, one is no harder to open than another. Same guy. And he shut that one. So he went back to his office and wrote the report. Later on, he went to meet the guy who owned the place, Steve Hoffman, according to the book. And yeah, so just for fun, he went with him. He started to work, and soon he went to the other room and opened one of the final counter. By chance, it was the third one. And then boom, this bright yellow paper with something scrawled on it with bright red crayon. Well, yeah. So basically that happened, and then he tried cabinet number 1. Somehow Feynman directed it in cabinet number 1, and then boom, that opened, and he kind of got very, very scared. Sallow face and all that. And then finally, he decided that, oh no, it's a spy, and Feynman decided, let's exit, because the last cabinet had his name on it, so he decided to whoop, bop, 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 and go away. Also, because there was the same guy and wise guy on the signatures, they That guy thought that this is a spy who was trying to get into Los Alamos during the war. Nah! And that kind of happened too. So he freaked out and finally decided, let's exit in his brain, and kind of ran away from the office. And when that guy checked the second cabinet, he finally realized it was Feynman. And, well, yeah, was very relieved because thinking that it was a spy, and suddenly it was not. And like, oh, I'm so relieved. He never said, don't do that ever again. Later on, we get more stories about the time when he moved to Caltech with a touch of Brazil, because he went to Brazil and did some lectures there. And he learned Portuguese, originally learning Spanish. And later on, that kind of happened, and, well, he learned how to get women. He learned also how to draw back when he came back to America. He refused an offer because it was too much money, and he knew what would happen if he had too much money and not what he could do. And finally, he learned how to draw, especially new models. Don't read this book if you heard that. And so he did that, and he started, like, drawing models, too. And then later on, some guy discouraged him from, like, saying, you'll never be able to draw as well as again like the other guys, because, well, yeah, for some reason, you only got a one-man show, and you sold all these paintings, because they think you're a professor, and something like that. And later on, he kept drawing, but he didn't draw as hard as before he did. He never sold another painting again, he never did another exhibit, he never used his fake name, Ofe, again. And, yeah, finally, the last story that we have from this book, we get this one. In this story, it is about cargo cult science. He confirms he's on the Board of Education. He goes ahead and goes to approve some textbooks. And then he realized, since everyone thinks that they're behind the Soviet Union, they just said, memorize this. The textbooks all say, memorize this. And don't say how and why they should be memorized. He likes to do that. And the only one textbook that he really liked was this one. But good. Blah, 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 blah. The temperatures were a little bit off, but other than that, it was right. And then when there were problems, there's no need to add these two together. You're just tricking a person to do arithmetic problems for nonsense equations. And other than, usually how many pizzas you buy, how many sausages you buy, how many stamps you buy, how many stamps you have to sell, other than that, there's no actual real world problems that are in the textbook. Next year, he went for science, and same problem, and he criticized the whole thing. The guy said, 65 engineers approve this, so you're stupid. I'm sure he's probably not as smart as 65 engineers, but the average of 65 engineers, yes, he'd be smarter than that. And then that's where the book ends. Somewhere around then. Later, he talks more about cargo cult science and religious people asking scientists some questions just to answer the question of this. Hey, this book says don't use any fire on Sundays, or was it Saturdays? Let's just say Sundays. But however, because modern world has electricity now, I have a quick question. And it's electricity, fire. Why are you asking? This book. They're not asking about science because they're interested. They're asking because some old religious book says that they shouldn't use this, and modern confoundings is not modern stuff, are very confusing. Is this fire or not? So they have to go ask a scientist. Electricity is not fire, by the way. Electricity can cause fire, but this is not fire. So that's the end of this book. So I hope you guys actually enjoyed this episode, and I hope to see you guys in my next episode. Please comment down below how I can improve, and I'll see you guys soon. Shout out. Peace. Doo-doo.